Burnout, particularly due to work stress, is a pervasive social phenomenon. If you hadn't had some brush with it yourself, then it's almost certain that you know someone who has. My guest today has had years of observing this phenomenon through her work and in aiding individuals facing burnout. Dr. Margaret Trey holds a PhD in counseling, has undertaken research into holistic healing of mind and body, and has authored several books on the topic. Together we'll explore whether we're now more prone to burnout than before and why. We'll identify the warning signs of burnout, and we'll start to look at ways to deal with this situation. Welcome to Vital Signs, where we learn how to get healthy from all angles, from the biochemical and nutritional to the things we do that nourish our minds and our souls. I'm Brendon Fallon. Margaret, so great to have you join us on Vital Signs today. To start with, I'm interested, I know this can be very heavy work, the kind of work that you're doing as a counselor, dealing with people facing different life pressures, facing things like burnout due to work and school pressure, all kinds of things. What's the first thing that would tell you that you're having trouble yourself and that maybe you need to take a step back and be a bit more gentler to yourself?
I think one of the first things that I would notice for myself is I'm feeling a bit exhausted and tired, and I'm skipping some meals, and there are many things for me to do, and I'm not sure which one to start. And then I realized, hey, this is not good. I didn't have lunch, and now it's dinner time, and I'm a bit tired, and mentally I am feeling rather exhausted. And this would go on for several days. And then I realized, hang on, this is not right, because it's also affecting me from doing well in what I am supposed to be doing during the day. And it takes a longer time for me to recover. Like I have clients telling me they sleep for a long time, but the next day when they wake up, they are still feeling tired and lacking energy. Generally speaking, when you have burnout, the first thing we notice about ourselves is that we lack energy. Kind of life feels listless. And then we realize the outcome, our productivity is also reduced. And in some cases then, emotionally we will be affected and we kind of felt negative and sometimes even cynical.
When you say that about productivity, I think there's this concept of workaholism that I can relate to very closely, in that work kind of becomes something that brings sometimes an unhealthy reward. And I see it sometimes the way that I've worked in the past. I try to do this less nowadays, but there seems to be a clear connection or a relationship between the way that I've worked in the past and the way that some people will use drugs or use alcohol. I guess in a healthy situation, you are getting a reward from working well and getting your work done. And I guess this ties into physiological effects like a dopamine release or whatever when you're completing your work. But I've experienced how that can have a negative side to it, where perhaps you're not looking after yourself very well and you're putting too much pressure on yourself and you're chasing that dopamine hit from the work to try and make yourself feel better, and it starts to cycle.
Yes, it's definitely a cycle. And when you are in the middle of it, it is very hard to slow down, Even though my mind would tell me, okay, slow down. And I have to train my mind to actually slow down. And because of my own past training, I do have some strategies to do. Okay, I'm eating. I'm sitting, walking. And so I try to bring myself to the moment and tell myself, okay, what do I need to do now? And I slow down. I try my best to slow down. And this is the same thing that I would share with my clients. Usually they don't see it happening, and when they do, then we will look at strategies. And the first thing is, when they come to see me, they always ask me, tell me what to do. And then I would usually put it back in their hands and ask them, well, you have many years of experience. You have come a long way in life. Tell me what has worked for you.
I can see that being very important, to kind of reinforce the person's own toolkit, their own strategies that they've worked out themselves through life to deal with that situation.
Yes, because when a person has burnout, it's very likely that they not only feel overwhelmed, not only emotionally drained, they're going to feel down. I'm not good enough. I can't do it well. They feel depressed and they also are unable to meet the constant demands from work, from maybe personal life, because there can be burnouts from different areas. It could be work, it could be a mother looking after a couple of kids at home and finding it very hard. So it's about caregiving. If you are a caregiver, a family member needs your support, or it could be about pursuing your own goals, and then you find yourself caught in these. And so, in order to get out, we have to first of all realize that, okay, this is where I am, and then explore my own toolkit. What have I got? What have brought me here? And my clients would tell me, right, okay, I take a bath, I take a nice shower, or I put on some essential oil, put it on myself, or I'll drink a cup of chamomile tea, or go outside for a walk in the garden. So we start from that. So the very important thing that for my role is to share with them, let them know what are the signs of burnout, like when they have no time, literally no time for non-work related activities. That's when you realize you have to slow down.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not burnt out, and at that point, and if you realize that this is what your life looks like, you have no time for anything outside of work,
Yeah.
then it's kind of a recipe for disaster.
Yes, it's about stress, our lifestyle. And another thing that I would notice, or my clients will notice, that they are getting a bit short tempered. And so then the ones who are more aware, then they will look inside and say, okay, what's happening? Or why am I reacting so strongly to certain things? And so a lot of it has to do also with the ability to look inside. If we can do that, because psychotherapy is all about looking inside ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think it comes with a kindness to yourself as well. You know, when you give yourself a bit of space, do those things like you mentioned, like the chamomile tea, the hot bath. I think that's when you have that mental space opening up to be able to look at how you might be reacting to things and consider it. Is this really rational? Or was my reaction really valid in that situation, or am I being driven by my own stress?
That is so true. And once that's happening, then we can already take small steps. Don't wait until we have the full blown burnout. Once we are in the initial stage, we feel tired, physically tired. We realize that we are getting annoyed easily and feeling kind of unaccomplished and maybe unappreciated. And then it's time to look after ourselves.
That unaccomplished feeling, maybe this is a little aside from what you're referring to, but that feeling of not completing what you're supposed to be completing, not fulfilling your responsibility. I'm familiar with that, and I know that can be. I think in a way that can be a deception, because I think people who probably put a lot of pressure on themselves are more prone to being in this situation, and that perception that I'm not getting done what I'm supposed to be doing, I'm not meeting my obligations, is probably coming through a lens of intense, self-criticism and self-scrutiny.
Very correct. And these are actually high achievers. They have a set of things that they need to do. Or like for my students, I would have a student coming in, crying and feeling really out of place. I said, what's happening? And she said, a lot. I just can't hack it anymore. I said, okay, let's take a step back. And when I have the whiteboard, I would go with her or him to the whiteboard and we will write out, okay, first, what's happening? 2, what do you have to do? 3, another one. These are your assignments. What else? So we list them out. At the time when I was working in the 2 medical centers in Australia, I always call this not the whiteboard scenario, I call it the dinner plate. So I would say, okay, let's take out the dinner plate. You've got food here, veggies here, you've got a whole heap of food and everything there. And I would say, okay, you've got this assignment to do, and you've got that to do, and you've got this and that, and house chores and looking after your elderly in-laws. And as soon as we put it on a dinner plate, then they realize, wow, I do have a mountain of it. I said, now you see why? And I like to use the food imagery, and I say, well, that's why you have indigestion. You got too much on your plate, and you can't take everything in all one go, and you feel overwhelmed. So that's my way of working with the clients before. And with the students, I usually would put it on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper to show them that, look, you've got 7 things you had to do. And I said, I'm so proud of you that you are still sitting there talking to me about it. So that's a +1 for you. Now let's go through the list to see what needs to be done first. And we will see how I can intercede for you with the teachers or with someone so that we can take away some of the workload or extend the, say, if it is an essay that is due, to extend, ask for extension. That's where I come into the picture to support my young clients.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, and I think just the fact that of writing those things down, I think, can be very elucidating. And one of the practices that I started doing myself, I try to do it on a daily basis, doesn't always happen, is journaling. And this is something that it's a main tool that's used in mind-body pain management, just the act of sitting down there and chronicling what's happened throughout your day. And it triggers this process of interpretation, I think, and cataloging your experience, which is very beneficial. And in terms of pain management, I think this helps people to identify perhaps these kinds of emotional triggers for what's become physical pain they may have put on the back burner. But through writing it down, it kind of brings it to the forefront of their mind.
That is so true, Brendon. Journaling is a great release for not only burnouts, but for other issues as well. And the other thing is then to have a list, a to-do list. And I always tell people, don't have 5 or 20, like, oh, count your toes and your fingers. How about we have a handful? Once you finish this, and then you have the less so important, not so important ones. So I would teach them about, is that called the 4 metrics? Important and urgent, and then important, not so urgent, and all that. And then we can decide how we prioritize. And in life, very often it is about prioritizing our needs and the things that we have to do. What's important for us, what is urgent, then we attend to those things first.
Yeah, I think of that as a kind of triage, and it's something I'm definitely better to do now than I was when I was studying. When I was in school in earlier days. I have it's almost like I can put the blinders on now, and the main thing, the most important thing, I can focus on that. But it also feels a little bit dangerous because I can do that to the point of just completely blocking out anything else that needs to be dealt with. I wonder, Margaret, we've talked about like the school setting that you're helping students in this kind of situation, and they have the benefit of the kind of guidance that you can offer. I'm wondering, for someone who may be in a very intense kind of workplace situation, and they've got these mounting work pressures, these things they've got to get through, is the same kind of approach recommended there, or are there other things that you'd suggest in that situation?
What I have suggested is short-term, immediate solutions, with the whiteboard and writing down things and prioritizing. Once they are able to do this, some of my clients, the students, would come back. Others would just be happy with that and just get on. Basically, one thing that is very important to all my clients is having someone to listen to them, acknowledging how they are feeling. And most of the time, they have their coping mechanisms. Once they can see, like once I had a student coming to see me totally overwhelmed. And once I point out a few things, because I work very intuitively, and I work also with Eric Erickson's model, psychosocial model. And then she realized, I said, this is your age group. What is happening is role confusion. Now let's take a look at what is your role? What are your plans of what you want to do? As soon as she realized that, and as soon as she knows what she wants and what she needs to do, boom, everything resolved by itself. I never had to see her again, and she just flew through and graduate. So that's for one type of clients, but there are others where we have to help them bit by bit.
There's the surface, the first aid toolkit, I guess you could say, in that kind of situation, and then there's looking at the broader issues, the deeper issues that might be at play, like these kinds of hard-wired ideas that may be problematic about who we are supposed to be, what our identity is, and as you say, the role that we're supposed to be fulfilling in society that may not necessarily be healthy.
That is true. I think what I want to say again to reiterate is that if all of us are able to look within and examine why we feel this way or feel burnt out, because most people don't use the term burnout. It's people like myself, a therapist, that will use words like that, phrases like that. People just feel down. They feel overwhelmed and mentally slow and lethargic, don't want to go to work. I have students who just say, I'm sick today and I need to go to see the nurse, and just lie down, but the reason why they feel that way is because, one, of excessive workload, constantly having too much to do, and then they have no control over it. And then in our case, in adults, we have maybe unclear job expectations too, and also, as I mentioned earlier, not feeling appreciated is actually a big thing. There's the lack of recognition and also lack of support from colleagues, maybe from your supervisor. Besides experiencing some bias, as soon as people can see, ideally see that these are some of the things that are happening in their life, and then they will be able to go to the next step to look at how they can help themselves. So I think it is very important for them to be able to understand and to have some insight about the reasons why they feel certain way. And in many times, they can't see that only when they talk to somebody or, like you said earlier on, journaling.
It makes me think about our current situation in society, and a lot has been said about the role of social media in adding to our pressures. And I always wonder about how it's affecting our relationships, because we have this kind of unfettered access, supposedly, to all the people in our lives through social media, through these different platforms. But I wonder if the nature of that communication is really as genuine and has the healthy rewards to it that it should. How do you see social media factoring into burnout?
I think you're bringing up a huge topic. A huge topic, because when we talk about social media, it's tied in with the internet, our internet usage. Almost every young person, I would say easily 80%, if not more, of the young people that I work with have what I would say, or therapists would say, internet addictive disorder or internet addictive behaviors.
80%?
I would say very high.
Wow.
It's so high. Almost every other kid that we have, either they're interested in gaming, they have to buy a cell phone and they buy several cell phones, and they like to be on the internet. Some of them may go on to social media to look at things, Many of them just want that access to go to maybe playing video games, gaming, for instance. It's a huge thing. In fact, it's so huge that many schools actually made a rule that students are not allowed to have their cell phone. They should be kept in the locker, and some schools even ban that. It's a growing problem. And I would say most of us, my colleagues and I, would agree that this situation has become more aggravated since the pandemic.
I guess with that situation where so many young people were forced to stay in their homes and experiencing tuition via the internet and being confined to their homes, and it seriously limits the available options for activity. So the device is the natural fallback for many people in those cases, I guess.
Yes. So now it's hard to take it away from them. I have actually one kid whose father, one student whose father is trying his best to look after the son and wanted to take away the device. And the son actually told the father, if you take it away from me, I will die.
Wow,
I will die.
that's an extreme reaction.
Yes, yes. So this is how serious it is.
Yeah, I've heard that in Korea they actually have these specific facilities for helping young people dealing with this kind of addiction. It's that rampant in that society.
I think it is happening all over the world. We should have facilities like that, right, Brendon? When you go in, it's like taking you back to 50 years where there is no internet. I think the modern term for it is slow living philosophy or slow living concept. You literally adopt a more deliberate approach to daily life and away from the internet, away from your devices, so you can focus on well being, maybe meaningful relationships with people around you, some personal growth.
To me, the using any kind of technology is the antithesis of relaxation. If I'm doing an interview, I will, I mean, not in this kind of context naturally, but if I'm interviewing someone just for an article or something like that, I will avoid using using a dictaphone. I'll take notes because there's something about technology that kind of fries my brain a little bit, and I always look forward to, at the end of the day, getting technology out of my space as quickly as possible. The process of writing someone a letter, just as an example, is so much more relaxing and reflective and everything than sitting there and typing an email to someone. I've tried to bring that back with correspondence with people, and I think, and in the past, it certainly led to a much more longer exchange and deeper exchange and more enjoyable exchange by doing it that way.
Yes, actually, there are studies that show that there is a clear difference between taking notes on a laptop and another student just using a notepad and writing. There is a clear difference. And for my example, for instance, since I am not doing so much classes, and if I do, even on if I do virtual, classes and all that, I make sure I have a notepad to write. And I find that once I write it, I don't have to study again because it goes straight into my mind and I can remember things easily. We were talking about the slowing down concept.
Yeah, I understand this is a movement that's gaining momentum. People are recognizing, and I think it's particularly with the millennial generation who are facing a lot of student debt, have significant societal expectations in terms of their employment, their career, and everything like that, starting relationships. So they're probably finding a need as much as any generation, if not more, to take a step back. And many, I think, are doing this to different degrees. Obviously, finances come into it. If you have the means, you're definitely better placed to be able to take a step back and take some time out. But you may not necessarily be set up like that. I think there's always ways, some of which we've talked about, to kind of slow down and give yourself a little bit more space because it's a necessity. Because if you don't do it, ultimately your productivity is going to suffer and you may just hit a wall.
I think a lot of people think, oh, slowing down, does that mean I quit my job and I do this but I don't have the money and I need the money. But my understanding of slowing down philosophy or lifestyle is that we see the mind is very powerful. We intentionally reduce the pace of life. It's all about the mind. It's not just about giving up everything and stopping work and going to live in a country. I mean, if we can do that, yes, but it's not something that all of us can do, Say if you are living in New York City, you can't just say, I quit my job and move to the country. It's
I do,
something.
I do fantasize about that.
But that's good. When you fantasize about it and you take it into your mind, you go into a calm state, you do your meditation, and you can go to that inner space of calm. And that helps. That's a strategy. There are simple ways of connecting with the slow living by small efforts, For instance, reconnect with nature. There are parks that you can go to, spend some time outdoors. I know it's a bit silly, and I laugh whenever I tell my students. I said, just go outside, talk to a tree, touch the tree. See, it's so big and tall, and the roots go everywhere. Feel the tree's strength. I know it's a bit silly, but just go and do some silly things and just be present.
As you're talking about it, I'm imagining it, and it's making me feel more relaxed.
Yes, and that's also something that I do, and that's why I would share with my students and say, do that, take off your shoes, just walk on the grass, and it's spring. May is the month for dandelions. I said every part of the plant is edible, and I will show them, pick the flower and eat them, eat the flowers in front of them. I said, I'm going to take this home and make dandelion vinegar. So it gives me a chance to walk around, the school compounds, picking dandelions and putting it into a box, and the students will come and help me, and they love it when I was teaching writing. They love it. They wanted me to take them out every lesson to be outdoors. They want to write out, I give them a writing assignment so they can write under the tree or on anywhere that they can sit on. So children are naturally attuned to all these natural ways of life that brings in that concept of slowing down. So as we grow older, sometimes we forget the simple routines in our life. So it's very important then to be aware of that and to bring that back into our lives. So that's another way how we could actually help to prevent or ease the first signs of burnout. Focus on self-care. You have to make time for yourself. You make time for rest. You make a time with yourself. Make an appointment with yourself. Have a hobby. And you must have activities that nurture the soul.
I think for many people, they may be so caught up in their lives and their different pressures, they're not sure what does nourish their soul. How do you find that? How do you identify what's going to give you that feeling, that make you feel fulfilled?
To be honest with you, Brendon, I never use the term find activities that nurture your soul. Like you say, it's too out of touch, at that time. So I'll just go with the basics. I start with a plate and I would draw things because I would put it on the paper, a round circle, and I say, okay, this is what you have, and that is what you have in your life, and this is what, and there are more than a dozen things. So I start with the basics by writing it out, talking about it, because some of us are visual. So I draw it or I write it on the whiteboard for them. Others are auditory and I talk to them. Others are more feeling. I said, how about you? Write it yourself. And they would go to the whiteboard and write. Or I use Sane too. Sane therapy. So I would have my room full of tiny toys, little things all over the place, and a tray of sand. So I said, how about, and because I have people coming in, young or old, and they just sit there and I could see that they don't know what to say and how to start, and they are really in a bind. I said, how about this? You pick up 2 things from the shelf there to tell me how you are feeling, and you put it on the sand. Immediately they would do that. They go and pick it up, and then they found that it was really nice touching the sand and actually picking up objects, and the story begins.
Yeah, sometimes I think self-expression is something that often suffers when we're under a lot of pressure. That ability to tune into what we're really feeling, and then to be able to frame it into words. So this is
Yes.
where things like artistic expression, I think, can be very valuable, and certainly often have turned to photography, as a way to get my feelings out and to express what's going on inside when I can't put it into words. So what kind of items do they have to choose from the shelves to put in the sand tray?
Everything. I have all kinds of things like from trees, shrubs, flowers to animals. So there are different categories of human beings, but we like to work in a symbolic way. So I would say when you choose an animal, you choose something that represent a bit about the person, because I used to work in child protection. So when I do this with my young and our clients, those who have been abused, that's my father, a crocodile with a huge jaw open like this. And that's mom. Mom is a rabbit, a horse, and then he would instinctively, or she would, pick up all these fences. I make sure I have fences and put all the fences in the sand or on the table, because sometimes when I don't have sand, I just put a piece of white cloth. It's neutral. And so the young person would actually build fences around the animals that represent the one who have been kind of abused or hurt. And then the crocodiles, the tigers, and all these animals, the fierce ones, what do you want to do with them? Oh, I want to get rid of them. Or they will just throw over the room and or bury in the sand.
I can see how it would help a person to identify for themselves what kind of relationship they have with certain people in their lives, to identify whether those people are having a healthy or a damaging effect upon them. I hope you're enjoying this Vital Signs episode. In a moment, we'll hear from Dr. Trey about a particular mind-body practice that can help slow the racing mind. But first, here's a look at my talk with chronic pain expert Dr. Howard Schubiner, revealing how pain is learned by the brain and how it may also be unlearned.
The brain can create pain that is real in the presence of physical injury, obviously, to protect us. It can also create pain in the absence of physical injury when there's something going on in our lives that might be particularly stressful or emotional. They will develop chronic headache pain, back pain, stomach pain, or other disorders. But if you don't know that neuroscience and you haven't explored it, for the average person, it makes no sense. You're telling me I've got this severe pain in my back, and you're telling me it's coming from my brain? The pain reprocessing steps are to begin to notice the sensations that one has with less fear and less worry about them. Because the more fear of the pain, the more the danger signal creates more pain.
I'm aware of a veteran study that was recently done with looking at Qigong that showed positive results for relieving pain. Would this kind of slow movement off Qigong and the focused mindfulness, do you think would that have played a role in these results? Afterward, find the link to that video at the top of the comments and also in this video's description below. And to subscribe for full access to our ever-expanding insights on fine-tuning your health, just hit the big red button below. We've talked a little bit about the power of nature to kind of ground people and help them to create that mental space to see the bigger picture of their lives. Mm-hmm. I know that you've written several books. You're in the process of writing one at the moment about a meditation practice that is largely practiced outside.
The latest book that is going to be published in a few weeks is called A New Beginning: Hope, Healing, and Transformation with Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa. It's a spiritual meditation, an ancient spiritual meditation practice from China. And Master Li, the founder of Falun Dafa, introduced it to the world in 1992. And from then on, it just spread by word of mouth because the practice is so effective in helping people. At the time, most of the people who started practicing Falun Gong is because they have either physical, psycho-emotional issues. And they found out that when they practice, all these problems just went away. I have one author in the third book. Her chapter is called Walking the Golden Path. She had multiple health problems, multiple, including tuberculosis and rheumatoid arthritis. She said when she came across Falun Dafa and started doing it, she said, I spent a lot of time. For 3 days, I was just basically sleeping throughout the day. On the fourth day, she said, I woke up, all my problems, all these illnesses just were not there anymore. So far, I've been practicing since 1997, so it's a long time. And I've been doing research in this field since the year 2000. Incidentally, Brendon, my first research, at the time it was master's level, was exploring alternative strategies for burnout. Falun Gong was the meditation practice that I actually chose to do, to work with in that. And it was a single case study of someone whom I met when it was my first trip to America as well. Meditation practice like Falun Dafa is an ancient, what I say is an ancient practice of slowing down. So the concept of slowing down is not new. It has been there all the time. It's an ancient practice for modern times,
Yeah, I mean, I can see how setting that time aside to go and sit outside, meditate. I mean, it's if you're doing that regularly, then it's kind of a routine that you're developing for slowing down and giving your mind some space.
Yes. I want to say also that before I came to Falun Dafa in 1997, I was practicing yoga from a very young age, actually, when I was a teenager, about 15 years old. So I was doing yoga for over nearly 25 years before I started practicing Falun Gong about 27 years ago, 1997, right? So it's been quite a long time. So then I could see the how closely connected the concept of slow living or slowing down is to ancient wisdom, and how these Eastern spiritual practices could actually benefit us in modern times.
And you mentioned there that your master's was looking at someone experiencing burnout, or it was related to burnout, and applying Falun Gong to help in that situation. Could you frame in a nutshell how that person applied Falun Gong, or what his situation was?
I could tell you about his journey. The pseudonym is Andrew. When I met Andrew in the year 2000, I was doing field research in America for rural counseling, and then I had to do a research topic. And I chose burnout because it was a huge topic at the time, and my professor chose that topic for burnout in Singapore, Malaysia, Hong Kong, with a lot of research done in that area on burnout. So then I met this person in Boston, and at the time he had recovered. He was practicing Falun Dafa at the time. So I asked him for his permission to interview him. And Falun Dafa was actually part of the journey, or the ultimate part of the journey. He started off with what we mentioned earlier, self-care, doing simple things for yourself. He went for massage therapy, he went for shiatsu therapy, he eventually even learned Reiki therapy and other ways of helping himself. And then he discovered Falun Dafa, and he found out that it was so powerful that he was just then practicing the 5 exercises. I would tell my clients as well. I said, look, just practice this. The first one opens up all your energy channels. This is based on, because my background is in Chinese medicine, besides counseling. So I do know, I studied Chinese medicine, and I did also things like pulse diagnosis, oriental therapy, 5 elements, everything. I said, just the first exercise opens your meridians in 10 minutes. All your meridians. How powerful is that? He said, teach me. I said, yeah, sure, I will. And from there on, you don't have to come and see me anymore, because Falun Dafa is free of charge.
And we know that people get relief from mental health problems in some cases, and joint aches and pains, all kinds of problems through something like acupuncture. So there is definitely something in this, and in addressing these different aspects of health that aren't necessarily emphasized in the Western model.
Yes, and my message to everyone is health is in their hands. They can always start with themselves and do something. Self-care is the key. And there are many things outside. I think this is one of the benefits of the internet. Go do your own research. Find out more about self-care, how to look after yourself. Because what works for one person may not. So I normally do not show, say, Falun Dafa or any kind of practices to them. And if they want to do it, I will give them information where they can go on or buy the books online, or go to the website and download the book for free. And in some cases, I would teach the exercise in session. Like someone who has anxiety disorder, they not go out in a park to do it. I said, okay, let's do the exercise in session. I have helped even people diagnosed with schizophrenia, but also have nervous anxiety disorders. And I even told this client, I said, because of your mental health issues, it would be a little bit hard for you to practice Falun Dafa because your main consciousness has to be very strong. And I said, I don't recommend you to even buy the book or read it. And guess what? It was reverse psychology. One fine day, this client of mine drove 2 hours to the city, like from here, from where I am now, to New York City, and bought the book. So when he came back for the next session, he was smiling. I said, what's up, Apollo? He's in my first book. I said, what's up, Apollo? And he grinned at me. He said, I bought the blue book. You see? And then another time he told me, come to the session, and he was very happy. He said, I can go and pay for gas by myself now, because he was so shy and so nervous that if he goes to the gas station to get gas, he dare not walk into the shop to pay for the gas. His wife had to do it for him. So he came a long way. I never credit it to my work. I would just say, this is the magic of Falun Dafa.
There's an inherent truth in that, because if we look at our bodies, they're designed to repair themselves, to overcome injury, and it makes sense. We're innately designed, set up to be able to heal ourselves. So something that can guide a person in that process and enhance their understanding to be able to do that sounds immensely valuable.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Margaret.
Thank you, Brendon, for taking up so much of your time. Thank you.
We've heard about some key warning signs of burnout, like low energy, low productivity, and feeling down. And we've heard how getting more nature time, less screen time, can calm the mind, and how mind-body practices like meditation and Qigong may serve as ancient burnout remedies for modern times. To find Dr. Margaret Trey's books on the specific health benefits of Falun Gong, based on research and as told by Falun Gong practitioners, just click or copy the links in this video's description or in the top comment below. Also there, find the link to Ease Back Pain, revealing how chronic pain can be reprocessed in the brain to bring relief. And if you found this video useful, I invite you to share it with even just one person who may benefit from its insights. It's been great to be with you. I'm Brendon Fallon, and this is Vital Signs.